Awesome. Yeah, nice to see you. So this is actually my very first attempt at doing this. This is a conversation with Josh Muller, Joshua Tree Muller, and my name's Sonnie Trotter. Um, yeah, just to give you a bit of context here, Josh. Basically, I'm on this like fun challenge with two of my buddies, Alex and Tommy, to try to climb as hard as we've ever climbed in our lives before. We're all fathers of two kids now, and it's getting harder. We're plateauing, we're having fun, but it's just getting harder and harder to stay in shape, stay consistent. And I think I think to sort of spur me on, I think it's really helpful for me to like learn okay, actually dig in a little bit, do a short conversation with some of the strongest climbers that I know and find out what works for them. Like get like kind of eliminate a lot of the sort of fluffy stuff and really get down to like nuts and bolts, like what's working, what worked in the past. Um, yeah, and just get your, your take on climbing, the climbing world today. Um,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a really fun, like journey to kind of wander through, and you got some good guys you're working with, Tommy and Alex, and honestly, I'm going through a similar change. Like, I'm not as young as I once was, and it's like, oh, okay, how do you how do you maintain this level I've grown accustomed to, as we get older, right? Because you want to,
100%.
I'm not done. I want to keep pushing. I want to keep trying to, be a better climber, you know, yeah. And I actually still have goals to climb harder than I've ever climbed as well. And yeah,
Perfect.
push through.
Perfect segue. um, so yeah, so basically, I mean, Tommy, it's funny because talking to Tommy and Alex, like they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, Tommy's got, such a massive track record. I mean, he's, and Alex too, and they're still trying to figure out how to optimize their own climbing. And
Yeah,
so I was like, man, like if we're all trying to figure it out, like what would it take to try to figure out what's the best of the best, And of course, there's a disclaimer, like what works for Josh isn't going to work for everybody, and vice versa, all the way around the whole spectrum. But to gain insight, to gain information, and then try it on ourselves, be like, okay, well, this is the theory that I got from so and so, and then just to apply it. So um,
totally.
yeah.
No,
So, and with that context, I actually want to introduce you a little bit better. So I've known you since you were what, 15, 16, maybe, on
yeah,
that
probably. Yeah, yeah,
road
yeah.
trip to Bishop.
Really, yeah.
Um, yeah, and since then, I mean, you've had a phenomenal climbing career, like, Canadian, I mean, international competitions, bouldering, sport climbing. Um, you've climbed up to V14 at least, right? Is that, yeah, phenomenal. Like,
Yeah,
that
thanks,
blows
man.
my mind. And here in the Bow Valley, like so many contributions to some of the hardest sport routes around, real test pieces that I'm still trying, and a lot of people will find a lot of joy for many years. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks.
And then in addition to that, you started three climbing gyms.
Yeah, yeah. We're at 3 right now. Yeah,
So, so the Whip in British Columbia, and then of course Boulder, two locations in Calgary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
So can
Yeah,
you tell us
all that.
just a quick background? So we only have about 30 minutes. So I'd love to hear a quick background of how did you get started? Because you were pretty strong like in your teens already.
Yeah,
Um,
young age. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I started climbing when I was 4 years old. I started with my dad and my older brother. We started at Big Rock, which is like a bouldering area just here in Alberta, south of Calgary. It's just like a giant glacier erratic, and we just we'd go there a couple times a week and climb the rock, in the summer. And then as we got more into it, we started looking for winter options. We're like, what do we do? And so we started climbing at the University of Calgary, the original wall there, which was just made of concrete, and the holds were permanently in place, and climbed there until the first real commercial climbing facility opened in Calgary, and transitioned over there. And we just kind of like we climbed 3 to 4 times a week at the gym. Every time we had like a week off school, we'd head south and we'd go rock climbing somewhere, whether Utah, Idaho, Nevada, anywhere really, anywhere where the sun was shining, we were heading. And just sleep in the back of the truck, live off a can of beans, and spam. Just 3 dudes climbing rocks, and it was awesome. And then, I started
Wow.
competing. I first did my like first competition, for fun when I was about 12 years old. The local climbing gym was hosting one, and I just figured I'd try it out. And I did okay. I didn't win the thing, but I did okay. I was like, happy enough with it. And but I had fun. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this thing. I'm gonna keep pursuing competitions and stuff like that. And as I got a little older in my teens, I started losing all the other sports that my dad used to take us on. We used to go mountain biking and kayaking and skiing and all this other stuff. And I just started not doing that stuff because I was so psyched on climbing. And it was just taking away from my climbing. So I honed in on climbing and kept pursuing it. Uh, I think I was on the Canadian team the first time when I was 15 years old. Went to Worlds as a youth. Did that a couple more times as a kid. Um, but then after youth, I kind of just phased away from competitions and actually took a break from climbing in general. I took about 5 years off after high school. I
Hmm.
just sort of just I was dealing with like shoulder injury and just like lack of direction, like you kind of finish a youth competition season, and you don't know what you're doing, and I hadn't really like discovered, hard outdoor pursuits for myself yet. So I was kind of just like aimless. And so I took some time off, and in those years I just kind of like traveled around the world, you know, just
Doing
checking
fun
things out.
stuff.
I love like seeing different cultures and experiencing different places. And so I just traveled.
Super cool.
And yeah, it was amazing. I love that time for sure. But I came back with a hankering for climbing again. I was like, okay, I want back. And I came back with both sort of like outdoor and indoor pursuits in mind. I was like, I still wanted to compete. I wanted to try and get onto the adult Canadian team, but also wanted to like try and achieve some of these outdoor goals. And so I kind of pursued them simultaneously for a bunch of years. Did some adult World Cups. Never was like that successful. I think my best placement was 18th, which was good, but not like
Heck yeah.
yeah. So I was psyched,
Really good.
and but I could always tell that my passion was never in comp climbing,
Yeah.
especially as it started transitioning to the sort of like more parkour style comp climbing, where it's like I just didn't keep up with that transition, and so I decided to kind of refocus my goals primarily on outdoor pursuits. And living in Alberta in the Bow Valley, that was primarily sport climbing at the time. So I honed in on sport climbing. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I did achieve some really great things, I think, in the Bow Valley, and made some contributions to the Alberta climbing scene, which has been really cool. Um, and I did that sort of mostly in the summers, and then in the winters I would travel and go bouldering down south, anywhere I could get my hands on. And about 7 years ago in 2017, I was I decided, I was gonna open a climbing gym. I was working in oil and gas at the time, and sitting at a desk typing, and I just wasn't in love with it. And this, climbing gym just seemed like the right move, and there was an opening in the market, so I went, I was all in and went for it. And it was like a ton of work, but it was one of the more rewarding things I've done in my life for sure. And it's also been a successful endeavor. We've been able to open two other facilities in that 7 year period, and every one of them have been hard, but we've worked hard for it, and it's been really cool. And nowadays I'm still pursuing my own climbing, but I'm also coaching a lot, coaching at a high performance team here at our gym, and that's been really cool seeing the next generation, achieving these like really cool things. And yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Brilliant.
But
Brilliant.
hey,
Yeah, you've been massive inspiration to a lot of people. So it's
thanks,
hearing
man.
hearing that whole progression is pretty cool. Climbing with your brother and your dad, and like it just how, I don't know, simple those times seemed, and
Yeah, totally.
obviously had a really lasting impression on you to the point where you're working so hard today. So that's part of the question is, how are you balancing sort of a professional life with like the time that it takes for training for climbing? So yeah, I guess a few of the nuts and bolts, like getting down to the nitty gritty with what is a typical, I guess the questions that I have is like, what is a typical year look like in terms of, you know, your planning, your volume? Do you take a month off here and there, or, you know, uh, and on that note, have you taken, you took 5 years? That was a big chunk. So that's more than maybe a lot of people will say. Once you
Yeah,
get the
totally.
climbing bug, you know, it's really hard to take 5 years off. But um, so that's one question, 1 year frame, and then on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, and then like a daily basis. So,
Yeah.
you know, and of course it's going to depend on what you're stoked on, but just a broader picture of what does your commitment to training look like?
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, you know, my main objective these days is bouldering. Just kind of like I'm cycle bouldering, and that's kind of where my focus is. So, you know, that I don't think it changes my yearly training that much. I never trained endurance anyways, so I always just worked on strength and power, and endurance comes easily. You know, it's not a hard thing to train. But on a yearly basis, what I usually do is because we don't live where there's a ton of bouldering, I kind of, you know, my season is basically fall to spring, and summer's kind of like my off season, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to you know, to speak to your point about, you know, do I take time off, like a month off or anything like this, and I don't normally take like a chunk of time off, like a month, unless I'm injured or feeling a tweak coming on. But what I will do is after a climbing trip where I've, you know, I've been away for 2 or 3 weeks and I've been climbing like, you know, every other day, then I take 2 weeks off. I'll always come
Mm-hmm.
back and I'll take 2 weeks off because, you know, usually
Brilliant.
there's a
Yeah.
good chunk of time before your next objective. So
Yeah.
it's nice to just be like, okay, I kicked the shit out of my body. I'm going to reward it with a little bit of a break. You know, I'm going to try and like work on some other things. I usually, when climbing is out of the equation, I put like yoga and physio training into my program just to try and, you know, mobility and, you know, just injury prevention and all that stuff is what I'm trying to accomplish at those times.
Yeah.
Just staying active, but just
Yeah.
like completely different side of it, you know. Um, and then so, you know, usually what I'll try to do is I usually have a pretty good sense of roughly when I'm going to have these trips coming up throughout the year. So I usually try to have like minimum 3, then maximum 5 trips a year where I, you know, spend at least a week, if not 2 or 3. And, you know, it's usually like spring, or yeah, something in the spring. I take the summer off, and then I do one in the fall, and then maybe 1 or 2 in the winter kind of months. Usually they're spaced out about 2 months apart from each other. So that gives me enough time to kind of take that break off. And then I come
Right.
into a 6 to 8 week cycle of training where I can prepare and get strong for the next climbing trip. And then, yeah, and then to kind of like zoom it in a little bit to sort of like a more of a monthly, weekly basis where I'm like actually looking at my training. Um, I'll start at weekly, and you know what I do in a week is I only really need to climb 2 to 3 times a week. I find at when you've been climbing as many years as I have, that the actual climbing component isn't as significant anymore. I like my technical abilities are pretty good. I'm not learning as much on a day-to-day basis. So I find that my time and my energy is actually usually spent better training. And so in that I'll do I always prioritize fingers. Fingers I think is like number one priority when it comes to any sort of outdoor pursuits. Um, I always kind of say like my top 3 things are fingers, shoulder, and core. Like those 3 things are the most
Boom.
important.
Fingers, shoulders, and core. That's like
Yeah.
those are my three things I want to ask you about.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Yeah,
this
those
is
are like I think the 3 most
beautiful.
important things when it comes to outdoor
Yeah,
climbing, personally. You
I
know,
love it.
and especially if your focus is bouldering like mine, you know. And so I'll do, yeah, like 2 to 3 times a week I'll climb, and then 2 to 3 times a week I'll train. And that training will include usually 1 to 2 finger training sessions a week. And then I do core basically every time I exercise core. So
Dang.
so if that works out to be 5 times a week, I do it 5 times a week. And then shoulders, I do different types of shoulder exercises twice a week. So feeling like, you know, to have good, strong, stable shoulders, you know, long, you know, capable core, strong fingers, that kind of carries me through. And then the climbing component, I just use as I use climbing as the, it's the reward. It's what I love doing. So it's like I don't put too much emphasis on what I'm doing in my climbing. I'm just
Hmm.
going and I'm having fun,
Yeah.
and it's I get to enjoy myself, And
This is a trap that I think a lot of people get into. I know I have for sure, where I think I'm training but I'm actually just having fun. I'm just climbing in the gym, and or just going on trips and climbing for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. And I'm tired, but
yeah,
am I actually moving the needle? Am I actually conditioning my body? The answer, when I look back at the last, our son just turned 10. When I look back at the last 10 years, I would probably say no. Like, I probably
yeah,
haven't been conditioning and moving the needle. I've just been climbing and having fun. And it's been great because you get to, tick some things here and there. But
yeah,
when you start to see that compounding over time, you're like, oh, wait a second, I need to do something different. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally,
yeah,
totally.
and
Yeah, it's
so
always got to be like shocking the system, and changing it. But like, also though, yeah, I when I coach people, I always say, you have to be like shocking the system. You need to be changing it up so that your body can't adapt as much. When you're getting a little bit on the older side, especially as an athlete, and I'm only 37, which isn't that old, but considering I've been climbing for 33 years and the majority of that at like a pretty high level,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm definitely my body's a little older than I am, just it's taken a lot of beating over the years. And so as you get a little bit older, you can't shock your system quite as abruptly. You have to be a little more gentle with it, and you got to come in with like a lot more conditioning.
Mhm.
Um, if you've taken a month off for a nagging injury, you need to give yourself a month to come back to training hard, and like condition yourself again, go through some hypertrophy phase, that kind of stuff, and just like bring yourself back up to capable, strong, and like, okay, now I'm able to push myself at that upper level again, and
Mhm.
then also paying attention to that upper level, when you're in your 20s, you can go to the gym 5 days a week and push yourself like 90 to 100%, and you're like good to go. And you're getting a little bit older, you need to be like, okay, maybe like 70, 80% twice a week, and like 60 the rest, you have
Okay,
to
no,
really
that's good
take it
rule of
slow,
thumb
right?
there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that carries into how you manage your work life balance as well. You
Yeah.
know, um, if you're giving like, we don't always get a choice of how much you have to give at work. Some weeks, some months are heavier than others, and I always kind of like try to remind myself that your body doesn't know the difference between like emotional and physical stress. So
True.
emotional stress being like work is really challenging, really demanding right now, or I'm having troubles paying my mortgage, whatever that stress level is for you. Or and then the same thing, on the other side of it is like stressing your body in a physical way. Your body is just deals with it as stress. So if you're here already because of like work stress, and you try to hit 100% climbing stress, you're gonna break yourself. You're gonna blow up. You're gonna
Agreed. Hmm.
burst at the seams. And so trying to be really like self-aware and try to just really reflect on like, how's my week treating me? Can I really push myself hard right now? You
Hmm.
know, um, and really try to go slow on that. And if you're like, you know what, I am really stressed out. I just don't think it's a good idea to push myself that hard. That's okay. It's like, you go back to that same injury time. You're like, okay, maybe I'll go to a yoga class instead. I can work on some mobility, try and like flush out some of these, like toxins in my body, just like calm myself. And then maybe tomorrow I'll be in a better place and I'll be able to get on the wall again, and I
Dude,
think
that's
that's
some that's
really
some
important.
wisdom right there. That's like,
Yeah, totally, right?
for sure. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah.
It's really important to kind of pay attention to those things. And, when I was younger, that was not my way of thinking. When I was
Mhm.
younger, if I gave any indication that I was not psyched to go to the gym, I had to deal with myself that I'd work 20% harder. If I was like, I don't want to go, I'm like, too late. Too bad you're going and you're giving 20% extra today, and that's how I push myself. But you just can't do that as you get a little bit older. Your body just won't tolerate it the same, And so that's really important to kind of pay attention to.
Mhm.
Uh, and then yeah, so that's kind of like my week, I guess, is thinking about 2 to 3 climbing and then about 3-ish training days a week. And one of the big helpful factors for me in like the training side of it is actually having an accountability partner. As grown-ups, we just like, you just squeak it in when you have time, and the kids are asleep or you have a gap in your work schedule or whatever, you just slip it in.
Yeah.
But those slip-ins become a little bit harder to grab and you get a little bit lazy and you're like,
I'll
oh,
do it tomorrow. I'll do it
yeah,
tomorrow.
it's tomorrow.
Don't-
But if you have an accountability partner, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, every Tuesday we're doing this.
Hmm.
Uh, and actually, I have an accountability partner, and so we do like every Monday, Wednesday, we start our day 10 a.m. and we spend an hour doing emails because we both hate doing emails for work.
Amazing.
And then we do an hour workout and then we get on with our day. So we're like accountable
Yeah,
for
that's
both
so
work and
cool.
life, you know? And
Yeah.
so that works really well for us. It's like having that accountability partner is really valuable. Um, and it's just good to like, it's a friend, you just get
Y-
those times to kind of like chat and like connect as well, right? Connection is really important.
I love how you said like you both hate emails. And so like anything that like your accountability partner can relate to is so important, right? Like,
Oh, it's so valuable. Yeah.
yeah. And so, very similar. I think that's why this is kind of sparking some interest in us. Like I've definitely been more like more motivated than I think I've been in a while because I know that Alex and Tommy are dealing with similar things that I'm dealing with, and I know they're still
Totally.
showing up. They're still going to, it might be late at night, but they're hitting the hangboard because they're not going to skip a
Yeah.
day. Because every day that you're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. If you have that attitude for too long, it pushes things back weeks, months, and seasons. And so,
Totally.
I think that accountability has been massive for me. I don't think I've had accountability for quite a long time, other than the accountability I put on myself or the projects that I have, which, you know, is what I'm realizing isn't where I need to be or where I want to be. So it's always been a
Yeah.
notch lower. So now,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Yeah, it's great.
No, yeah, it's totally true. And once upon a time, just having a project on the horizon was like all the accountability I needed. Like, I want that. And I just was like chasing that target. But it's like, I have like 7,000 other things on my plate now.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, oh yeah, I'd love to send that boulder, but I really have to do all this other stuff. It's like
100%.
that's like three
Okay.
months away. This is like my wife's gonna give me shit this afternoon if I don't get it done. You
Well,
know?
this is perfect. This is perfect because like I'm actually really happy with the way this conversation went because it did sort of start broad and it's kind of gotten to this point of like, okay, now what do you do and how do you
Yeah.
do it? What do you do and how do you
Yeah.
do it? And
Yeah.
so I guess the question, you've painted a great picture of your sort of your annual, your monthly, your rest periods, things like that. I guess, I was trying to think of my head. Well, what are the three, three is like seems like a simple number. What are the
Yeah.
three most important things that you do for fingers? Because you've already said that fingers are probably your most important priority.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I don't get too fussed about these, there's a lot of new like
Yeah.
I don't know, research, new ideas, new concepts in mind with finger strength.
Yeah.
I don't really fuss around with too much of it. I think I'm sure there's lots of value in all of it. Um, I personally just prefer to do weighted dead hangs. Weighted dead hangs are
Perfect.
my number one. It's my bread and butter. I feel good, strong. But with those, I have a few rules with myself. So usually, like my finger training program will go. I usually do about 8 sets of 10-second hangs with about 3 minutes rest between. Um, when I'm deciding on the intensity, usually I'll try not to exceed 90 pounds extra weight. I find if I exceed 90 pounds, it's kind of hard on my back. So 90 pounds is like a reasonable weight. If it's easy, I reduce the rung size. And I usually will try not to go lower than 10 mil. Like once you go past 10 mil, you're sort
Oh,
of
it
into the
hurts.
threshold point, and it's not as much about strength as it is like, oh God, this hurts, you know? And so those are kind of my thresholds. Obviously, if I am doing 10 mils, 90 pounds, 8 sets, and it's easy, I need to start thinking about different things.
Mhm.
And what I've done in the past is I've worked like, hung front or back three and front three as an option. That works pretty well. I'm terrible at one arm hangs, but it's something I'm trying to work on. But I'm just not
I,
very good at it.
I'm terrible too, like absolutely terrible. I can barely
I,
hang from a pull-up bar. Like it's crazy.
yeah, like I just I'm like terrible. I don't get it. I
And
don't
I'm
know.
I'm also with you on the 10 mil. Like as soon as I go to 8, like it's fun for like a second and then it's really not that much fun anymore.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this isn't enjoyable anymore.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's my first thing I'll do.
Yep.
Eight sets, 10 seconds. Next thing I do is I move into like a full crimp hang with no thumb. So same thing,
Oh
10
yeah.
seconds. I just like, because I climb with full crimp a lot. That's kind of
Hmm.
my strong suit. But the way I look at it is like, take the thumb off, make it harder,
Cool.
So same position. I set myself up with the thumb,
Yeah.
and I just take the thumb off and I hold it. Same 10 seconds. I usually do about 4 sets of those, 10 seconds, 3-minute rest. And then the final thing I'll do is finger pull-ups. So I don't take my feet off the ground. I just kind of like lean into it. I just do full finger pull-ups. I just do 10 pull-ups, 3 sets. It's
Incredible.
kind
I feel like that the pull-up thing is a bit of an old school thing.
I know.
Like
But
like I remember learning that like in the late 90s and I was like I swore by it, for
it's
the longest
amazing.
time
I mean,
because I could do it in my
it's so much
basement,
fun.
like
Yeah, like you think about, you hit a crimp,
yeah,
you hit it like you barely hit it,
and then you roll it.
and you roll it in. Like it's a pretty common move that we do. And so
100%.
why not be strong like you can obviously use your shoulder and your bicep to kind of get you there with a
Mhm.
readjustment, but if you have the hand strength to just reel it in, it's just that much easier, that much more controlled. So those are
Brilliant.
my three main finger workout things that I do, but I'll always superset them with two or three other things as well to just try to like round off the whole workout.
Yeah.
um there's
Okay.
there's research that says doing sort of like big muscle big muscle training with your fingers actually allows you to have like a better return on your finger workouts. So I'll do
And
like a
more
squat.
recovery between, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you say big muscles, you're talking about back, shoulders, and core even.
Yeah,
Okay.
legs, lats, like yeah, that kind of deal. So you
Okay.
do like dips and squats, and I do pull-ups, even though you should rest your hands, but whatever. Pull-ups are
Well,
better.
let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the top 3 things that you do for back and shoulders or shoulder strength, shoulders and
Yeah,
arms, whatever, however you want to phrase that.
yeah,
What are
totally.
your top 3 favorite tips?
My top three things I love to do is like I love to do like a weighted pull up, and then I'll take the same amount of weight and I'll do weighted dips. And my goal is, I'm not sure why balloons just came up.
Me neither. That might be a warning or something.
Oh, there.
Yeah, I didn't touch anything, I swear.
That's awesome. So I was gonna say, yeah, so weighted pull-ups and weighted dips. My goal is to always have them be equal, like at least very close to the same strength. So I do 90-pound pull-ups. I'll do, like 5. I'll walk over and I'll do 90-pound dips, and I'll try and do 5. That's my goal, is
Wow.
to be
Okay.
just as strong in both. Um, and
Super
then my
cool.
next thing I love to do is I have like a shoulder complex I like to do, where I'll hold anything between 10 to 15 pounds, depending on where I'm at in my training cycles. I'll usually do flies to the front, flies to the side. I'll do like a rotator cuff, and bent over flies out to the back. And that's kind of I do like 4 sets of all of those. And I do about 15 of each of the shoulders, and I don't rest between. I just one to the other all the way through. You're pretty cooked afterwards. Those are like
Amazing.
my top 3 things. I've been doing them since I was like 14 years old. They're still my like
Wow.
favorite 3 exercises. And then I obviously like dabble in other little things
Yeah.
depending on my project and what I'm trying to like achieve,
So the weighted pull-ups, oh yeah, running out of time. Okay. This is good. This is the first
Yeah,
one, so we're learning how it goes.
yeah,
I think I've got like 6 more minutes, 5 or 6 more minutes with you. Yeah, and then core, of course, the last, two
yeah.
two or three favorite core exercises.
Yeah, so I don't do a lot of like sit up crunchy style core. I'm terrible at it, and I think it's less applicable to climbing as well. I'm probably bad at it because I have a bit of a heavy upper body, big shoulders and chest, so it's like curling that's quite hard. But what I do like to do is I like to do levers. I'll try and hold levers for um, usually around 20 seconds, and I'll try and do 3 or 4 sets of those.
Hmm.
I like to do a knee up trio, which is like knees to the center, knees to each side.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third one I like to do is holding a kettlebell just down to your hip, and you just do side crunchies.
Oh,
Like
cool.
yeah, those are like kind of my three bread and butter items. Then when I'm feeling particularly strong, I like to introduce it's called like meat hooks. It's kind of a bit of more advanced, but you're hanging from a ring. And you curl yourself from like a straight body position so that you're like draped over your shoulder and back, and
Yeah.
it's like a full range of motion. It's
Just
really hard.
destroys your body in a good way,
Yes,
in a good way.
yeah, but it's really good for your core. It's and shoulder, and yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, those are my bread and butter items for sure.
Love it. Super cool, dude. And how do you think climbing like for you or like has changed over the years? So like if I had to summarize, it sounds like you're putting in less hours climbing than you used to, but you're
Yeah,
putting in more concentrated effort on those things that we're talking about that move the needle, like more concentrated effort on increasing your capacity to,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I think over the years, like when I was 14, I had I had the worst technique in the world. And I had to take a step back and I had to learn how to climb. I was strong, but it was just dragging my body up the wall. So I've learned those moments where you gotta like take a step back and just be like, hey, listen, like you need to hone in on this, right? And so over the years, like I actually have done tests on myself over the years as well. And one thing I've done is a bunch of years ago, like not that many years ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I saw how long I could go with climbing once every 2 weeks. Um, and like not extras, not working out otherwise. So my only workout being once every 2 weeks climbing, how long it would take me to drop below V10 climbing.
What?
And it surprisingly like took months. Like I think it was like 8 months before V10 started feeling hard. And so I was like, okay, clearly
Amazing.
my capacity is like pretty high at this point in my life,
Oh
because
yeah.
I've been so long. So I don't need to like spend as much time on that. I make it the time that I do spend on the wall, I make it really valuable and really enjoyable. And I think that's what keeps me going. It keeps me psyched, you know. Um, I don't take very much rest time. That's another thing I do when I climb. I'm rarely off the wall for more than 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Like when I'm climbing with friends, I usually put 2 to 3 reps in for everyone that they do,
Hmm.
just because I just work at a high frequency. It's how I train fitness as well. It's just like every day when I'm on the wall, I'm here to work out, you know? Um, yeah, and just starting to like really enjoy climbing. And if I'm bouldering at the gym and I don't like a boulder problem, I'm walking away from it.
Yeah.
I don't,
100%.
I'm
Couldn't agree
out.
more. Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do the thing I like to do over here. You
Yeah.
know, I'll grind and put in that work when the time is necessary and like when I'm outdoors trying to do something that I actually want to do. But when
Hmm.
I'm in the gym, I'm there to have fun now, and I'm
Yeah.
there to like
And
just
and motivation is everything.
yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Like if
exactly.
you're motivated on a line outside or even inside, like if you're just not motivated, then don't fight it. It's just
Yeah,
like I'm good. There's 20 other things I'm still happy to go do. Like I've been getting like pretty good at walking away from climbs too. Like
yeah,
my wife, she's really flexible. So she'll do these crazy high steps on like slab and if I'm just not like, I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do that today, you know? And
Yeah.
there are days where I will do it. And because
Yeah.
you know, that something's different in my body, the way I'm feeling, or my psychology, or my
Yeah.
inspiration. But when it's not, I'm very happy just to, I'm good. Like, yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I think you and I are very fortunate in the sense that we've been climbing for a lot of years. Um,
this is true.
and
Yeah.
a lot of people still need to put in the reps and still like get out there and still learn a lot about climbing and movement. But we're just really fortunate that we've been doing it for so many years, and it's just like that, that knowledge left to learn is just it's a little bit smaller than it once was. But I also do say to everyone, like, there's no such thing as garbage reps. Like I think a lot of people nowadays just like, to warm up on these hang boards outside and, avoid having to do real warm ups and things like that. And I don't believe in that so much. I don't think there's garbage reps. Like climbing's climbing. I love doing it. And I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna get better at it every time I pull on the rock. So I'm just, I do hangboard warm ups, but I'm also getting on the rock and actually doing movement. Um,
I like that.
it's
That's cool. Yeah,
yeah, it's important to just enjoy it for what it is.
100%. Okay, I'll leave you with two more questions.
Yeah,
Just we are, I see a clock now, so we are running out. We
yeah.
got like 2 minutes, okay? And then I'll thank you for your time. But board climbing, does that fit into your board climbing and campus boarding? Because that seems to be on other people's lists. How does that
Lists,
fit
yeah.
into your?
So camp sporting doesn't fit into my life. It's for me, it's just like too injury provoking for nowadays.
Mhm.
When I was younger, I did a lot of camp sporting, and it was really valuable. And I
Did it? Yeah, I was going to say, did it make a difference?
yeah, like my power was just so good from it, and very valuable when you're young and you can handle it. Nowadays, every time I just blow up, like my elbows, my fingers, everything, like just everything is sore and broken up afterwards. However, on the other end, board climbing is that's my jam. I won't touch the moon board. I don't like the moon board. I think it just causes injuries. I've injured myself on it several
Mhm.
times. So I personally stay away from it. I still recommend people do it. I just keep it within, I suggest keeping 30 to 40 minutes a week total.
Right,
Total.
super small
If you
doses.
beat
Yeah.
that, I think you're just gonna hurt yourself. Kilter board, I like it's okay. It's not my favorite thing. It's a good wall. It's certainly a massive step up from the moon board, but it just I find it a little bit tweaky for me. The
Mhm.
way the grips land on my fingers, it's just a little bit irritating for me. Um, my favorite thing is we have like an incredible fill wall at my gym here. I love climbing on that thing. And then my second favorite is the grasshopper board, actually. Grasshopper board is like Boon Speed designed it. And
Mhm. It's got a
it
lot
was
of
like
variety.
yeah. It's got just like the holds are like really they're really good. Like they're comfortable, but they're like you work really hard on them. They're not tweaky. It's really easy to make your own boulders on them. It's
Mhm.
symmetrical, so you can like test both sides. So I basically I warm up on the commercial set because I think it's really fun and playful, but then I'm basically all immediately onto the boards. And I'll climb whatever board I got, but definitely my favorite is our spray wall and the grasshopper.
Love it. Dude, this has been amazing. Seriously, like your insight into like the three things that you do that move the needle, how you juggle your warm-ups, your playtime, your inspiration. Like it's so cool to have these like really concise conversations. And
Yeah, totally.
I'm hoping to absorb as much information as I can and really apply it in the next 12 months, starting
Yeah.
immediately. But okay, I got 60 seconds, so I just want to appreciate, like your insight's been valuable, and I really hope everyone enjoys this number one episode. We'll see where this journey takes us, but
Yeah, totally.
yeah, can't thank you enough, and good luck on your upcoming road trip to.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you as well. Yeah, well,
Thanks.
we'll talk again soon as always.
Okay, take
Thanks for
care.
thinking of me. Ciao.
All right, see ya.